Consumer needs motivate our thoughts, feelings, and behaviors. However, while motivations do not completely determine our behaviors, they do provide the intended reasons for our actions. In this part of the lecture, in 5.2, we're going to look at certain things about the strengths of our motivation, about our self-improvement, and we're going to try to understand a little bit more about why we do some of the things that we do. Motivation does not happen without the presence of a need, which creates some tension in our minds that we then attempt to eliminate. An athlete has the desire or the need to improve, and if this desire is strong enough, they will spend hours and hours practicing. This also happens with consumers. Have you ever had a hankering for a specific type of food only to not have it in your house? So what do? Do you change the desire or what you're wanting? Or do you get in your car and drive to Krispy Kreme at 1 o'clock in the morning for a succulent donut? Or the opposite could be the case. If you have a hankering for that donut, but you also have the desire to lose weight. There's conflict there. So which desire has the greatest motivation? For me, let's just say I'm on a first-name basis with the staff at Krispy Kreme. How much tension the need produces will determine how much effort or motivation will be created. The text kind of refers to this as drive, and it focuses on the biological needs that create those unpleasant feelings inside us, such as hunger. However, related to this is the concept of homeostasis. Our bodies like to be in balance. We prefer it when we are not hungry, nor do we want to be stuffed after we've eaten a big meal. When there is some type of imbalance, our bodies create a motivation for us to restore things to equilibrium. If we are hungry, we grab a snack. If we are stuffed, we push away from the table. And if we are sad, we find things that make us feel better, such as a dose of retail therapy. But be careful. The worst time to shop for groceries is when you're hungry. And never go to the grocery store when you're both hungry and sad. It's just not going to be pretty. This ad that we're going to see next kind of sums up homeostasis pretty well.
So you guys grew up together?
Yeah, since 3rd grade. What are you looking at?
I'm not looking at it.
We're not good enough for you. You looking for something else?
No, I don't know.
What are you, big supermodels? Oh, Jesus. Supermodels. What do you model, gloves? What are you doing? The girl's totally into me.
Brad, eat a Snickers.
Why?
Because you get a little angry when you're hungry. Better?
Better. So, ladies.
So, losers.
Stacy, relax.
I'm sorry.
You're not you when you're hungry. Snickers satisfies.
We often gain positive motivation from our desire to improve ourselves. Here, the behaviors are altered by our desire to change our current state into a more ideal state. For example, many of you exercise on a regular basis or try to learn a new language. Are you driven by a desire to improve? Consumers often will seek the same feeling by moving up in what they own, say by buying the next highest level car that they currently have. If you look at General Motors, they have kind of a stepwise where you start with Chevrolet, then you move to a Buick, all the way up and you're moving into the Cadillac. But again, these type of changes, these type of feelings kind of make us feel good. But these elements do not apply equally across all consumers. Some will be motivated by self-improvement at one point, but homeostasis will have an impact at another time. Much of our understanding of motivation argues that it's the cognitive rather than the biological that drives us. It is the expectation of achieving a positive outcome rather than trying to avoid a negative outcome that causes us to select one product over another. For example, the regulatory focus kind of sits neatly between homeostasis and self-improvement, in that it argues that consumers orient their behavior either through a preventive focus or promotion focus. We either want to avoid something or we want to improve something. Take a look at these two toothpaste brands. Crest, on the left, is promoting a prevention focus called cavity protection, while Ultra Bright promotes advanced whitening. This lines up with expectancy theory in that we choose one product over another because we think our choice will have more of a positive outcome. To better help us understand this, it's important to think about that motives are directional by nature. They either propel us towards something or repel us away from something else. Those that propel us do so in order to help us satisfy a specific need. In this part of the lecture, we will discuss needs versus wants and motivational conflict. At the heart of marketing lies what we refer to as consumer needs. And consumer needs are really the heart of the marketing concept. Psychologists and consumer researchers agree that human beings have the same basic needs. However, these needs get translated differently into different wants, resulting from a variety of motives. With consumers being different and unique to each other, it's important that the marketers understand the various needs and provide relevant product and service offerings that kind of meet what the segment is looking for. An understanding of human needs and motives would also help marketers understand and predict consumption behavior. You know, the two terms needs and wants are often used interchangeably, but they do hold two different meanings. A need is a state of felt deprivation, while a want is a desire for something very specific. And of course, every time I think about needs and wants, the Rolling Stones song comes to my mind. Which basically goes like, I'm not going to sing it, so don't worry. You can't always get what you want, but if you try sometime, well, you just might find you get what you need. Pretty true statement. A consumer may often find himself amidst conflicting needs and goals, kind of at the same time or at various times, and this leads to what is referred to as an intra-individual conflict. Something that the person feels within himself. So these conflicting goals could lead to three different types of intra-individual conflict. Well, it's a mouthful there. It could be an approach-approach conflict, an approach-approach avoidance conflict, or an avoidance-avoidance conflict. If we look at the first one, the approach-approach conflict, in this conflict, the consumer finds himself in a situation where he has to make a choice between two desirable alternatives, each of which are equally attractive. However, due to constraints, he cannot choose both at the same time. For example, a person wants to buy something to fulfill his esteem needs. He can either buy a Mercedes or a BMW, but he can't buy both because of his limited resources. Another example could be that a person is hungry and is tempted to have pizza or beer, or pizza and beer. So how do you balance that conflict? The second, approach avoidance conflict, here the consumer is faced with an option that has both a positive and a negative to it. For example, the goal presents something attractive, yet something unattractive as well. Thus, the person is both attracted toward the goal as well as being repelled by it. For example, a person might want to buy a new television set with all the best features and quality sound, and he's presented with the various alternative brands that are out there. He's tempted to buy a Sony, but he also knows that this would be, at a premium. It costs a lot of money, much more expensive than the other brands. Then he looks at, while Sony has high quality, it costs a lot more. And the situation would further get complicated if the dealer informs him of a scheme where he leaves Sony and buys a Samsung, he gets a free DVD player. So again, all of this conflict, all of this balance that we try to achieve makes it difficult sometimes. And the third one, the avoidance conflict, this basically involves choosing between two equally unattractive and undesirable alternatives. In this situation, where you can choose between the devil and the devil, the consumer is faced with two options, each of which he wants to discard. For example, a doctor might prescribe a patient a long-drawn treatment based on medicines with a lower rate of success, as against another option, which is surgical procedure with higher risk of post-operative complications. Which do you balance? Neither choice is good, but you got to pick one. So it all makes it difficult in our mind because of the conflict. Now, as humans, we basically face and find two different types of needs: physiological and psychological needs. Physiological needs, as the name suggests, these needs arise out of our physiology and are also called as primary or biological needs. These needs such as food, water, sleep, etc. We are born with such needs and they are innate in nature. In order to survive, these needs must be fulfilled. As human beings, all are similar, thus we are also familiar in so far as these needs are concerned. Psychological needs, on the other hand, these arise out of our sociology and psychology, and as such they are also called secondary needs. We have, for example, need for affiliation, power, recognition, esteem, a status, etc. And during the period of socialization, we acquire such needs, and human beings differ amongst each other in as far as these needs are concerned. Now, there have been numerous attempts to develop a grand inventory of needs that could explain almost all behaviors. One such attempt was completed by psychologist Henry Murray, who developed an inventory of human needs, and his work is basically the basis for many personality tests that are still in use today. Under his inventory is a set of 20 psychogenic needs that determine behavior and include dimensions such as autonomy, defendance, and play. Murray argued that everyone has the same set of needs, but individuals will rank these needs based on their own individual priorities. Other such inventories have focused on specific needs and how they impact our behavior. Some of these needs, such as the need for affiliation, which is we want to be with others, or the need for power, which we want to have control over our surroundings, are evident in many new products and brand messages being developed by marketers. Think about some of the newest and smart home products out there. These products allow a consumer to control the lighting, the temperature, open and lock doors, and turn on and turn off appliances from anywhere in the world. That gives us a total amount of control, or we think we have control. The final and perhaps most used need classification is Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Maslow proposed that human needs could be classified into 5 basic levels: primary basic needs, safety, security needs, social affiliation needs, ego, self-esteem needs, and self-actualization needs. Each of these needs could be ranked in order of importance from the lowest to the highest through a pyramidal structure, starting with the basic and primary needs to safety, social affiliation, ego, and then finally self-actualization. The theory was indeed a pioneering piece of work and has been very versatile enough to be applied across many social science disciplines, including marketing. Consumer behaviorists have found that the versatility of the theory is highly useful while testing consumer motivation. The 5 needs and the terminology has been universally used and tested across many disciplines. The need classification is generic enough to include needs that individuals possess. However, some critics argue that the pyramidal structure fails the test of real-life situation in practical testing. For example, some of the behavior that researchers find that it is limited, especially in terms of consumers moving hierarchically across needs from lower level to higher levels. What that basically means is that originally Maslow talked about how we had to meet the first level of needs before we went to the second level and the third level and just kind of moved on up the pyramid. But what researchers have kind of found is that, yes, our physiological and safety needs are incredibly important, but after that, we can bounce around from all the way from safety and all the way go to self-actualization. It just depends. So, and that basically covers what I want to talk about in this lecture. But in the next lecture, we're going to talk about the concept of affect and involvement. See you soon.